What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, I wanted to showcase some Pangoro gameplay in the Ultra League. This Pokemon is very unique, being a dark and fighting type Pokemon, which while that does make you weak to other fighters, it makes you so much better against all of the Psychics and Ghosts, which are very common right now in Ultra League. So let's get into the battles and see just how strong Pangoro can be. Alright, first match of the day, Pangoro in the lead up against a Galarian Moltres. Now, while there is a flying type into our fighting type Pokemon here, we have to keep in mind they're using Sucker Punch, which does nothing to us. Karate Chop is neutral against them, so this matchup, despite type effectiveness not necessarily being on my side, is still not the worst for us here. We're going to shield up a Charge Move. It is an Ancient Power bait, but thanks to no boost on their part, we can go for close combat, go for a Night Slash after if they let this go, or go for a second close combat if they do opt to shield it up, and Pangoro can win this matchup the longer it goes on. We're at close combat plus a Night Slash now. If they do no shield this up, they can go for a Brave Bird, but not before I can CMP a Night Slash. Let's see what they do. They do no shield the next move. I have a Night Slash ready to go. Do they want to shield up one more time, or will they let this move through? Night Slash is going to end up getting the final shield, and now we can either Karate Chop down or let this go and try to finish off the game with our Shadow Galarian Weezing and our Gastron. We no shield. It's an ancient power of all things. I probably could have gone for a full farm down here, but I figure at this point I might as well guarantee switch and shield advantage. I don't know if that next Sucker Punch would knock out, and we get a boost, which isn't really going to matter because Grumpig can come in and go for a full Psywave down here. Unfortunately, our best answer here to this Grumpig was our Dark-type Pokemon, and now I have to use my Poison type to knock this out, but because we are a Shadow Galarian Weezing, I think these Brutal Swings should be able to two-shot. This Grumpig is going to be forced to go for Shadow Balls against us if they want to do any sort of damage. Dynamic Punch would do nothing, and thanks to that Shadow bonus damage here, we can easily two-shot this Pokemon. Grumpig is kind of bulky, but these Brutal Swings are very spammy, and we have a bit of attack here on our Galarian Weezing. In comes their final Pokemon. Unfortunately for them, it is a Regirock. Not what you want to see as a Gastron. Well, it's exactly what you want to see as a Gastron, not what you want to see as the Regirock. GG's to them. Looks like the next game here up against World Champion Yakai, a very scary trainer to face in the Go Battle League, and a very scary lead for us to see as well. Galarian Weezing is probably one of the worst case scenarios that we could have. I see that they go for a Charge Move here before I can throw a move that's likely going to be a Sludge, and then they swap out here to their own Golisopod. I know at this point I do need Switch at all costs, right? There is a Fairy type for a Dark and Fighting type Pokemon. If I don't flip Switch, there is no way I can win this game. At this point, I do land the Sludge, which is a good step number one here, but I still need to land another Charge Attack if I want any chance to knock out this Golisopod and to flip Switch. We are very spammy, though. We got quite a bit of an energy lead from that Weezing since they stayed in for so long, and so this next Sludge is going to be reached as our opponent shield. They are going to try to shield up for Switch advantage, and at this point, I do have to shield a second time if I want Switch. Because, though, I have Brutal Swing, I think I can outpace before I get Shadow Claw down to these two Charge Moves right now. I have back-to-back Brutal Swings. If he shields once, I can throw the next one. If he no-shields, I can likely throw a Charge Move against whatever is going to come in. We see the final Pokemon is a Cradily, and while this is a good matchup here for our Pangoro, I know they're going to get a nasty farm down here. Pangoro is not known for its bulk, so if they can get to 2 Grass Knots against us before we can knock them out, which they already are at 1 Grass Knot, they might be able to sweep this endgame just using their Cradily. I do get a Night Slash, which might draw a shield. I want to see this get no-shielded right now, though. If a no-shield happens, I can win this game. They shield it up, which is very scary. We get a boost, but it's not going to matter because now they have back-to-back Grass Knots right now. The first one is going to be thrown. The second one is going to follow very closely after, and now Gastrodon is going to have some work to do. The good thing is that is all of the energy gone from this Cradily, so at this point, all I have to do is hope that 4 Mud Slaps plus a Body Slam is enough to knock out this Pokemon, but it's a resisted non-stab Body Slam against a Cradily from a Gastrodon. Is this enough? I just have to hope that it is. Body Slam comes through, it knocks them out, and at this point now we have our Gastrodon up against the Weezing. We were barely able to win that one. GG's to our opponent. Next matchup here going to be a very neutral lead, actually, a Unova Stunfisk, a Pokemon which is not all that common here in the Ultra League. I have my Gastron, which would much rather see this, but our opponent is staying in here for just a second. I'm going to go for the Night Slash first. I don't want to debuff myself because they're building up so much energy, and at this point, I do want to neutralize this Ufisk so our Galarian Weezing doesn't have to see it. I actually end up getting a boost here, and they safe swap here to their Zygarde. ABA ground from our opponent so far. I go for a close combat. Our opponent does have to shield it up, saying I am boosted. That would do a massive amount of damage. I have yet another Charge Attack ready to go, and at this point, I have our Gastron as well that can line up into that Ufisk and drain all of the energy that they have. They go for a Charge Move here in just a second, or they don't even throw a Charge Move. Likely that means they're going for an Earthquake, and because Weezing is so spammy, we're actually able to snipe down all of this energy before they get anything off. With that said, Ufisk still has basically 100 energy at this point, so it's not really going to matter. They have 2 Mud Bombs that they can throw against us here. This Brutal Swing chip damage is kind of nice. It puts them close to Night Slash or potentially just Mud Slap downrange later on, but they are going to be able to knock us out before the next Brutal Swing is going to be reached. They have the back-to-back here, and they just throw instantly to knock out our Galarian Weezing. That likely means their final Pokemon is going to be a little bit soft to poison or fairy-type damage. I have no idea what that's going to entail. It is going to be a Mandibuzz at the back, it looks like, which makes sense. They wanted to get rid of my fairy-type Pokemon, and now Pangoro is going to have its work cut out for it against this Mandibuzz. Unfortunately for me, I threw on pretty bad timing here. I went over 100 energy because of this, and if I want to go and throw my move, I have to throw on good timing and go even more over 100 energy. Not a great play, but Pangoro will still easily be able to get to 2 close combats, which, if I can land them, should win us this game. Pangoro is throwing the second move at this point. There's no more shields for this Mandibuzz to hide behind. It's a neutral move, but it's a very strong attack. Nearly does half of the Mandibuzz's remaining HP, and now another charge attack is going to come through. I'm going to shield this up, force more energy against our Pangoro here. I have the Night Slash loaded. I'm going to call that they know I'm 1 away from a close combat, so CMP the Night Slash here. Looks like I did make the right play because I did see a CMP event. In comes the Aerial Ace at this point. If they do undercharge, I can swap out. If they don't undercharge, then, that's fine by me. We get knocked out. We come in with our Gastrodon one way or another. They still have that Ufisk in the backline, but very little energy left over on it. And these Mud Slaps, despite being resisted, are technically, I guess, adding up over this Pokemon over time. We have Body Slams ready to go. I probably need 2 charge moves if I want to knock out this Pokemon, but at this point, I just have to watch out for a catch, and we should be able to win this game. Body Slam ends up landing not quite in range where I can Mud Slap down super easily, but they instantly swap out here to their Unova Stumpfisk. I can go for a full Mud Slap down, and at this point, if I can, I might as well go for an Earth Power against that Flying-type Pokemon. We have it loaded right now. As long as our opponent does not top left, we are going to be able to knock out a Flying-type with our Mud Slap user throwing an Earth Power. Let's go, Gastrodon, throwing the Earth Power, knocking out the Mandibuzz, and taking the win in that game. All right, next matchup, we're going to see Pangoro in the lead up against a Shadow Dragonite, a very scary Pokemon to see. Obviously, Dragonite is one of the most hyper offense Pokemon in the game, and Gastrodon does want to avoid this as well as Pangoro, but because we can spam out Night Slashes here, it is slightly better for Panda than it is for our Gastrodon. I'm going to go for these Night Slashes. I know because of how spammy we are, we can actually force them to throw a second Dragon Claw or get both shields from them before we are able to get just completely Dragon Breath down. First one does get thrown. Our opponent obviously is going to no-shield that, knowing that it could boost our attack, and they didn't really want to shield a non-boosted move. I don't get any boosts though, but we are going to force energy from them immediately here. I can farm down with Galarian Weezing and hope that once this is out of the way, I have a lot of play with our Gastrodon in the backline. Dragon Claw does end up knocking us out, but now Weezing is going to be able to easily Fairy Wind down here, and out goes the Dragonite. In comes the Blastoise, and at this point, I'm kind of wondering, is it going to be a Drapion in the back? I've seen that quite often. Drapion or a Steel-type plus Dragonite is a very common duo, and that is how I'm going to play this game around. They're trying to bait out our rollout user with, or our Mudslap user rather, with this rollout user, which means that Weezing is just going to stay in here knowing this is likely its best matchup remaining. Sludge is doing quite a bit of damage here, but I am a little bit sad to let Weezing go. I know Weezing is a very squishy Pokemon, and these 2 Hydro Cannons should be enough to knock us out. And here comes the next one here. We have basically knocked out this Blastoise, so this is 1 Mudslap away from getting knocked out. Dragonite is still around, which is scary, which is why I do save a bit of HP here on our Weezing. And, oh no, the final Pokemon is a Talonflame. We are down shields. Our team in general is kind of weak to Talonflame here, so seeing this in the back, especially when you only have a shields down Gastrodon in the back line, is absolutely abysmal. There's also that Dragonite that is still very healthy at this point. Well, not very healthy, but I guess at this point, outside of Mudslap downrange, I don't think I can knock them out super easily. They go for a charge move here. I'm going to try to go for a Body Slam, but they throw another move. I can survive a Fly, but a Brave Bird would close out this game. Brave Bird, unfortunately, going to be thrown against our Gastrodon at this point. Almost nothing I could do. GG's to our opponent there. Interesting team. I was hoping for that ground weakness, but they had a very strong Pokemon into ground types. Not good for us. Next game, a Weezing. Another thing that's not very good for us here, but we're going to safe swap with our Galarian Weezing, and we are actually met here by a second Poison-type Pokemon. ABA Poison from our opponent. They must not believe in Mudslap. Hopefully they don't believe in it so hard that they are triple weak to it. But with that said, Weezing Shadow into Shadow with this Drapion is actually not that bad of a matchup. We land that first charge move. We can see that they also land a move against us, but these Fairy Winds and these Sludges are adding up against them, and I can always outpace them with how much energy lead I have here. Sludge number 2 going to be thrown. Does our opponent shield it up? They actually do, which is kind of interesting to me. I don't think that would have knocked out, but they are very much trying to go for switch advantage in this game, which is a very interesting play. I can reach another Sludge here in just a second. I'm not sure if this one knocks out either opponent, though, over farming. If they do shield up this move, I can just cleanly win the 2-shield matchup and potentially line up our Pangoro in a spot that is much better for us than against a Mudslap or a Fairy-type Pokemon. We have our Mudslap user, rather, for their Poison type at this point, and we should be able to win this game as long as our opponent doesn't have a hard core breaker here to Pangoro plus our Gastrodon. What is going to come in? If it's that Weezing, I can probably reach a charge move against them, but they had a Gastrodon of their own. They must have have misswapped when I say swap my Galarian Weezing, Gastron would have been a much better counter swap into me, but it is very good for us that they did not end up doing that. In comes the Galarian Weezing here from our opponent, and at this point, this game is more than over. I have a close combat loaded in the backline. Brutal Swing is going to chip us down quite a bit, but as long as I have enough of our HP on Gastron remaining, their own Gastron will not be able to muzz that down. I can go for an Earth Power or a Body Slam, and then potentially go for a close combat to close out this endgame. Weezing's one big thing here is how spammy it is, though. Look at all these Brutal Swings just coming through before I can even get to basically even one Earth Power. They're able to get to 3 of these Brutal Swings, which do a decent amount of damage over time, I guess. Fairy Wind as well is adding up, but I can knock them out here with one more Mud Slap. I have an Earth Power loaded. I have a Close Combat as well. Our opponent comes in, but our Gastron is able to throw their Charge Move first. Its Earth Power will not knock out, but it will put them into a range where a Close Combat will be more than enough to knock them out. I don't know how I can back from this one, but once again, a Galarian Weezing is going to not be able to knock us out here. We were able to flip that matchup. One of the worst leads we could see, but Pangoro is just a little bit too crazy. All right, next matchup going to be a bit of an interesting lead. You don't see Heliolisk too much, but it's a pretty good lead for Pangoro. Obviously, fighting is good against normal, but our opponent safe swapping instantly into a Shadow Driftblim. This matchup is pretty good for Pangoro as well, but we have to keep in mind that these debuffs will start adding up over time, and I have no fast food pressure into them, so I will always need to throw 2 Night Slashes if I want to knock them out. I see when number 1 does end up getting that debuff against us, I have another Night Slash ready to go. If they shield this up, I have back-to-back. If they no-shield this move, then I will be able to just have a lot of energy for the backline. They do shield it up here, so I'm going to go instantly for the next charge move. They actually go for an overfarm, so I could have thrown on good timing. I just wanted to guarantee both shields, though, that go down before I end up having to use my next shield. We actually get a boost, which is fantastic, but I don't think we're really going to need it at this point. We can just let our Pangoro go, because one fun fact about Heliolisk is it has access to Grass Knot. If I would have kept Switch Advantage this game, and I would have brought in my Gastron against an energy lead Heliolisk, that would have been catastrophic. So instead of going and getting one-shot by a grass move, I'm going to try to invest in our Shadow Galarian Weezing and see if we can win this game. In comes a charge move, but I know that was only 3. That is going to be a breaking swipe. It's going to do almost nothing. It could get an attack drop, but fortunately for us, we do end up dodging that, which means now we can knock them out here with this Brutal Swing and have quite a bit of energy and a shield for whatever is in the back. Our Weezing at this point is going to have a lot of work to do, but thankfully they come back in with that Drifblim, meaning now our Gastron is not going to have to deal with this Pokemon, and hopefully whatever the final Pokemon is can't beat our Gastron and our Weezing. Well, it could beat our Gastron, but our Weezing is so very healthy at this point. Dragon Breath is not doing enough damage. Shadow on Shadow, Sludge comes through, nearly one-shots them, and now we can Fairy Wind them all the way down, getting a full Shadow Galarian Weezing sweep without even needing anything from our Gastron in this game. Dragon Claw gets shielded up just for good measure. We get a Fairy Wind down, and we can take the game there. All right, next matchup, Pangoro up against a Shadow Drapion, a very good lead, but honestly, it's also kind of awkward because if they stay in here, that likely means either there's a Ghost type in the back or some sort of fighting weakness. Because they are staying in, I'm going to just go for these close combats, see what they throw. They did build up a decent amount of energy here. That is actually a Sludge Bomb. Interesting play by them. I have back-to-back close combats, which is pretty helpful, but if they do double shield, they can farm me all the way down and take almost no damage on this Shadow Drapion. Close combat number 1 does get a shield. The second one is going to come through. It's not going to one-shot them, but it will put them pretty low if they do let it go. So they actually just opt to double shield their Drapion. Interesting play. Now our Gastron is going to try its best to farm this all the way down. Once this is out of the way, our Shadow Galarian Weezing should be in a pretty good spot as long as there's not a Mud Slapper in the back, but in Ultra League, anything can happen. It definitely could be that. They've revealed their full moveset. It is Crunch and Sludge Bomb, so I know at this point they're not going to get to a third charge move. I can survive this next Crunch, go for a full Mud Slap down, and we might be able to win this game with our Shadow Galarian Weezing in the back. The full Mud Slap down does end up happening. What is going to come in other than a Golisopod Pokemon, which hard walls basically all of our energy there, but our Galarian Weezing looks like it's in a pretty good spot because we can safe swap and go for a Brutal Swing before even an Aqua Jet is going to be reached, put them into Sludge range, and now we get to see their final Pokemon is going to be a Shadow Feraligatr. So our opponent has almost no bulk in the backline. They likely would want to have some of their shields remaining, but since they used them all in the lead, we're in a very good spot. Sludge ends up doing a massive amount of damage to that Shadow Feraligatr. Not enough to one-shot and farm down, but enough to put them into Brutal Swing range, and at this point, our Galarian Weezing should get a full endgame sweep. All I need to do is go for this next Brutal Swing, knock out this Gator before the next Hydro Cannon is going to be reached against us, and then Sludge that Golisopod, and if I need to, I can also go for an Earth Power because we have a ton of energy loaded on our Gastrodon. They have almost no energy after this charge move, so at this point I can go for a Sludge if I need to do the combo play, and we should be able to close out this backline. Very interesting team from our opponent. Pretty squishy lineup, honestly. Shadow Drapion, Shadow Gator, and Golisopod, not the bulkiest Pokemon out there. In comes Gastrodon, and we are able to get the combo play. Our opponent top lefts, that is, and we are able to knock them out. GG's to them. All right, next matchup, we're going to see our Pangoro up against a Golisopod, this time in the lead. This matchup, while we do resist their Shadow Claw damage, is not as comfortable as you might think. The main reason is Night Slash is not the strongest move in the game, and these Karate Chops are also resisted against them. So Night Slash is going to add up, but I mean, also these Aqua Jets just do a massive amount of damage. It's one of the best moves in the game, exact same stats as Sludge, and we know how good Sludge is, so this move is a bit scary, but Pangoro is still able to neutralize this at least enough to make it so our own Gastrodon is not going to be as worried in the back. We're going to shield up this X-Scissor. I guess they're going to throw X-Scissor rather than an Aqua Jet there, just in case I get a catch, I guess. And we're going to go for back-to-back Night Slashes now that we have almost 100 energy. First Night Slash is going to come through. I'd love to see a boost here, but at this point, I guess it'd be a little bit too little too late. We actually do get the boost, which is kind of funny. But because I didn't get the boost on the first one, we still need another Night Slash to knock them out here. They actually just opt to let it go, which is kind of interesting. They come in with a Shadow Dawn fan. Oh my goodness, that is a scary Pokemon to see. I have close combat, though. It's boosted. It should be able to knock this Pokemon out or draw that shield. And now Gastrodon's going to come in and unfortunately get a one-turn lag, meaning that now this Dawn fan is a bit of a problem. I can shield this up. I know it's a Trailblaze almost certainly, but at this point they can reach 2 Trailblazes before I can get to a second Body Slam. This is looking pretty bad for us right now. We have a Shadow Galarian Weezing that I guess we could probably knock them out with just a Brutal Swing here now that we've Mud Slapped them pretty low, but we're going to take 2, maybe 3 Mud Slaps that are going to be double boosted. This is going to be a very hard game to win. I have to hope at this point that their final Pokemon is not going to be a strong answer to Weezing. We're taking almost half of our health from 2 Mud Slaps there. Hopefully that final one did not register. Brutal Swing does end up knocking them out. We still have a bit of our Weezing, but unfortunately a second ground type in the back. The Shadow Hippowdon, definitely enough to knock us out there. I was hoping for like a Virizion or something, but no break for us. GG's to our opponent. Next matchup, a Registeel in the lead, and our opponent is staying in, which is fantastic for us. Our Shadow Galarian Weezing does not have Overheat, so we don't really want to be in that matchup. We're going to go straight for the close combat. I mean, the thing is, in this matchup, you're very free to just debuff your defense stat, because Registeel, no matter what, is always just going to do 1 damage with Lock On, so I'm fine lowering my defense stat, going for an Overfarm here, and seeing how our opponent wants to play this out. They are staying in, even after I debuff my defense. I'm going to go for a Night Slash here, try to knock them out before they can swap out, and see what they want to do. Night Slash gets thrown, our opponent does let it go. Down goes the Registeel. That is a very useless Registeel at this point. They just got 1 shield for basically nothing this game, and in comes a Golisopod. At this point, I can try our best to chip this down with our Pangoro, but because this Golisopod is going to be able to try its best to neutralize our Pangoro, at this point, I don't know what the final Pokemon's going to be. It feels like Pangoro has even more play in the backline. I might want to save it just in case it might be good. I'm going to catch the move, and funnily enough, I'm going to catch it on our Gastrodon. I know normally the Golisopod is a pretty good answer to us here, but Gastro is pretty bulky, and I mean, at this point, Mudslap is adding up. I've done a lot of chip damage to them, and I'm going to be able to, at this point, just no-shield everything. I know they had a Registeel in the lead, so likely their final Pokemon is going to be a decent answer here to Gastrodon. It is actually going to be a Jellicent, which isn't a hard answer to Gastro, but it is a Pokemon that can easily absorb our energy or potentially just shield up at this point, and they should be in a good spot if they end up doing that. But because I have both Brutal Swing and Night Slash that are very spammy moves, I can just spam out charge attacks here, let our Pangoro go, and sweep the endgame with our Shadow Galarian Weezing. Surf does end up knocking us out. We go for I guess a couple of Karate Chops here before they're going to go for a Surf. Our opponent is going to not knock us out with this, but put us pretty low, which means this Night Slash is going to try its best to knock out this Pokemon. I don't know if it's quite enough from this range. I guess, no, not even close. What am I talking about? That Pokemon's way healthier than I thought it was. In comes the Golisopod. They actually have a bit of energy, so I'm happy that I can get this move off. At this point, if they do no-shield this attack, our Weezing wins. Honestly, if they shield this up as well, we can just shield this, or no-shield, save our shield for the Shadow Ball, rather, and go for a full Fairy Wind down, Brutal Swing on the Jellicent, and then we should be able to win this game just with our Shadow Galarian Weezing. We have a Brutal Swing ready to go. This should be more than enough to knock out at this point. Shadow Weezing is very offensive here, and I know Jellicent is bulky, but not bulky enough to survive that attack. GG's to our opponent. Very interesting team. Next matchup, what are we going to see? Pangoro up against a Malamar. Interesting lead. I know at this point that Pangoro does have a decent matchup, but Superpower would do quite a bit of damage. They could always bait us as well. So what I'm actually going to do is go for a full-on close combat, swap out to our Galarian Weezing, and try to catch a move or at least drain energy on this Pokemon. Let's see what they're going to do. They're going for a couple more Psywaves here, then they're going to swap out to a Lapras, another Psywave user, so ABA Psywave from our opponent so far. I'm going to go for a Sludge, try to do as much chip damage as I can. I did get a decent energy lead going into this matchup, but I'm a little bit scared at this point because that Malamar has so much energy left over on it. It will be a bit of a tricky Pokemon to take out. Sludge ends up doing about a third of their health once again. They throw a Sparkling Aria against us right before we can get to another Sludge, so I'm going to shield this up, overfarm just a bit more energy and try our best to knock out this Lapras so we don't have to deal with it with our Gastrodon later on. Sludge is going to knock them out if they end up letting it go, but if they do shield it, I'm going to try to get to another move. They do let it go, which is interesting. Either Malamar is going to have to throw a move, or we're going to see their final Pokemon before we have to show ours. They do show their final Pokemon. It's actually a Shadow Feraligatr here, so I hope I can land the Sludge. I'd be surprised if it does end up going through these two shields. At this point, they have very little HP remaining across the board. They actually do let that move through, which is very surprising to me. I know at this point, Superpower does not one-shot us. I can no-shield this up, and at this point, it's just going to be a Gastrodon endgame sweep. I can no-shield everything on our Pangoro and try our very best to mud slap through the entire team. Foul Play doesn't even knock us out at this point. It is a very resisted, also a debuffed move after that Superpower, so we were able to survive, go for a Night Slash, knock out this Malamar, get a couple more Karate Chops against this Gator, and now once again, Mud Slap is all I need to win this game. Mud Slap is a very offensive move, and while Shadow Feraligatr is a very offensive Pokemon itself, I know they need 3 Hydro Cannons to knock us out. They're barely going to reach 2 before we can Mud Slap them down. First one is going to come through. I'm going to no-shield because I know at this point there is no reason to shield the first one when they're going to get a second one that I can just shield in a second anyway, and then just keep tapping my screen. They're nowhere near that third charge attack right now, so this Mud Slap does knock them out, and we can win the game there. GG's to our opponent. All right, next matchup, Pangoro up against a Lapras. We have seen a lot of Lapras today. I haven't really seen this head-to-head matchup, but unfortunately for us, we're not going to see this one in its entirety because our opponent swaps out to a Grumpig, another ABA Psywave team. Very interesting team from our opponent here. I go for a Night Slash. I try to catch a move on our Gastrodon. We don't quite get it, but Gastro should be able to absorb energy pretty well here and make it so we don't have to deal with a Psywave user with our Shadow Galarian Weezing. With that said, there could be tricky Pokemon in the backline. Mainly like a Galarian Weezing could probably be the worst thing that we could see here. I know, though, at this point, we can survive this move, go for a double body slam if they do opt to shield, and a 2-shield advantage is normally a pretty good thing to have, and I would assume if we do end up getting that, we should still be in a pretty good spot. Body slam going to be thrown. Does our opponent shield this up? If they do, they're going to have to double shield. What is going to happen? They actually do shield. That's kind of surprising to me, which means I think they might have a hard answer to Pangoro in the backline, and this could be bad if they do double shield and just go hard for switch advantage here. That is not looking good for our chances of winning this game, depending on what that final Pokemon is going to be. I'm going to come in with our Shadow Galarian Weezing, go for a full Fairy Wind down. Hopefully these charge moves against that Lapras are going to be enough to keep our Weezing healthy to make it so I can maybe sweep this endgame with our Shadow Weezing. They do go for the Shadow Ball there. They come in with their Lapras, which doesn't really surprise me at this point. Psywave is a super effective move. It's a very bulky Pokemon as well, which means that this Sledge is not even going to come close to two-shotting. I have to throw 3 charge moves, and these Psywaves are just doing so much damage. This Sparkling Aria would knock us out or come close to it. I need to keep our Weezing alive because I'm very worried about what that final Pokemon is going to be. I'm hoping at this point that if it is a Fairy type, then it's going to be a Fairy type weak to Sludge, maybe like a Clefable that we could easily go for a Sludge against and hopefully still have a good time. But because our opponent is staying in this matchup, I'm almost certain at this point they know that they have me pinned. It's going to be a Galarian Weezing. If that is the case, then we have lost this game. It's a very unfortunate situation, that is, because our opponent was ABA weak to our Pangoro, but because that Grumpig was actually kind of flexible into our team here, they were able to dance around us, go for a Sludge against our Weezing, and then use their own Weezing to just sweep this endgame. Sludge does knock us out here. I mean, I guess I could get a Night Slash boost, right? That would be my final win condition right now. If I can get this, maybe I can win this game. Night Slash comes through. Do we get the boost? No, of course not. So the Sludge is going to come through. It's not going to one-shot us. Sludge isn't what does the damage. Honestly, it's just the fast move pressure. These Fairy Winds do quite a bit of damage to us, and it's not even supposed to be an offensive fast move. We get Fairy Winded all the way down, unfortunately. GG's to our opponent. Next matchup, Pangoro up against a Gastrodon. Not exactly a great lead. Honestly, not a great Pokemon for our entire team to see, but Pangoro is probably one of the better spots to see it, and I know once this is out of the way, our Galarian Weezing should have a lot more play. I'm going to overfarm as much as we can. Our opponent does actually give us a sneak, which is kind of nice, and now I can overfarm by 1 more Karate Chop, go for a close combat, and try our best to knock out this Gastrodon. They do go for a Body Slam bait, which is very obvious, but I mean, at this point, I do kind of need to keep our Pangoro alive, and I need to get as much damage against this Gastrodon as I can. Our opponent, once again, just overfarming here. They have another Body Slam, and after that Defense Drop, after this next one as well, I can almost guarantee you that a Body Slam would knock us out here. I go for a Body Slam catch. I don't want to shield up a Body Slam of all things, and I feel like they're kind of weak to Pangoro with the way they've been playing out this game. I know it's a little bit risky not to just go for another close combat and basically knock out this Pokemon, especially when there's an Air Slash Mandibuzz in the backline. That's very bad for us right now, but I can try our best here to try to dance around this game, maybe build up energy on our Galarian Weezing. I just didn't really want to shield up a move like that would have done almost nothing to us in normal circumstances. Body Slam is a very annoying move to have to shield, but I guess going for switch advantage, getting our Galarian Weezing against this could have been better. With that said, I don't think you can actually ever force the 2-shield matchup against a Gastrodon, so I likely would not have got switch anyway. Body Slam number 2 coming through, or this might be number 3, honestly, at this point. I haven't really been paying attention to this matchup because it is so incredibly boring. Our opponent going for a charge move. I'm hoping for a Dark Pulse right now. If they Aerial Ace, that means they have a lot of energy, which means they're going to farm us Okay, well, I thought they were going to farm us down going for an aerialist, but I'm very happy with this. They dump all of their energy into their Gastron, or into our Gastron, rather. I can come in with our Galarian Weezing. If they ever swap now, we're actually in a pretty decent spot, because I can come in with our Pangoro, go for a close combat, knock out, actually, against this Pokemon here. Actually, we got a CMP. I'm going to go for an Undercharge. We get the perfect Undercharge, meaning we get one extra Fairy Wind on our Galarian Weezing, and now that Mandibuzz in the back line is going to not want to see our Weezing. I have no idea what the final Pokemon is going to be, but we are trying our best to set up our Weezing for an endgame sweep. In comes their own Galarian Weezing, which I think at this point should be game over for our opponent. While they could have access to Overheat, I still have a shield. 2 Sludges will be enough to knock them out as long as I get a couple Fairy Winds of chip damage against them. And once I get to back-to-back Sludge here, I can go for 1 against this, 1 against that Mandibuzz. And, well, maybe I need a bit more than 1 against Mandy. They actually go straight for the Overheat. I guess that would be their win condition. Just try to land the move through the shields. They did make a nice catch, but unfortunately for our opponent here, this Mandibuzz is going to be in prime farm down range after the fact. I know that this Air Slash Mandibuzz will add up a bit more than I'd like it to, but thanks to them not being as efficient with their Mandibuzz energy as they could have been, they only have 1 charge move they can reach, and even if they did have 2, it wouldn't be quite enough to knock us out here. Meaning this Fairy Wind down is very important. I get a Sludge against this, I get a Sludge against this Weezing as well, and we should be able to get a nice little endgame sweep once again with our Shadow Galarian Weezing. Weezing putting in a lot of work. Honestly, it's a very fun Pokemon to use as long as you avoid those Mud Slappers. Alright, next game here, going to be a Pangoro up against our Shadow Steelix. I said that the wrong way. A Shadow Steelix up against our Pangoro, that is. They counter swap or save swap with their Blastoise, which is a Pokemon, honestly, I don't have a hard answer to, but because Pangoro does end up resisting these rollouts, I'm going to stay in here for just a second. Honestly, I might just stay in here for the whole time, right? I know that I have a Gastrodon for that Shadow Steelix. I know I probably have a good matchup in the back with our Shadow Galarian Weezing, so I might as well just stay in here, shield, go for an Overfarm, go for Night Sashes now at this point, outpace his Blastoise, and hopefully win Switch and win the game. Our opponent is going to have a big decision to make. Are they going to shield up a Night Slash of all things, or are they going to let this go, give me Switch advantage, which is a very risky thing for a Steelix user to do. They do let it go. They're hoping at this point that my best answer to that Steelix is this Pangoro. Unfortunately for them, there is an Annihilate for their team, but I have a Shadow Galarian using one of the best Annihilate answers in the game, and that Gastron in the backline is going to love to see that Steelix. Night Slash number 2, honestly doing quite a bit of damage to them. Now I just bring in our Fairy and Poison type. I try to farm them down if they do let us, and if they swap out, I just show my Mud Slapper, and we can RPS the heck out of them. GG's to our opponent there. End of the sets here today. I was actually able to climb quite a bit with his team. 24-11 as our ending elo. This is a very high elo right now in the season. I know 2400s isn't normally the highest rank to be, but at this point, queue times are terrible. I get like maybe 1 or 2 matches every 5 or 10 minutes. It takes a long time to find opponents, so I think this team's pretty good. It's doing pretty well for me right now, and you should try it out if Pangoro looks like a fun Pokemon to you. Alright, well, thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed the battles and want to see more content on the channel like this in the future, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. It helps out a ton, and I would really appreciate it. Thank you again, though, for watching. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.